On that matter note, please allow me to add also, Ambassador Dr. Arikana is also known as by most of us, by Africans at home and in the diaspora as Mama Africa. Excellency Ambassador Dr. Arikana, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Mahlet, and also to Her Excellency, Ambassador Mahlet. Thank you for the wonderful, thought-provoking questions that you posed to us at the end of your presentation. To the organizers of this wonderful program, my dear daughter, keep up the great work. Voices like yours are so needed in this particular time in our history as people of African descent outside Africa, as well as Africans on the continent. The voices must continue to become louder and louder. The questions that were posed by the ambassador are prominent and relevant. And it's something that we all should stop and think about. But as I was trying to decide what to focus on in my presentation today, I always find myself going back to knowledge. In order for us women to be true leaders that we need to be, just like men, we must be armed with knowledge. Just like men, we must understand the terrain that we're working in. For every situation, for every moment, for every location, the strategies are different. Let's be very clear about one thing. While Black men also have platforms to climb when we're dealing with those who don't look like us, we also have another layer to climb, our own men, unfortunately. So understanding that we're already at a disadvantage, most of us growing up in Africa, we all were raised by women who were very powerful, women who made our fathers think ideas were theirs, when actually the ideas were coming from the mothers. We have to be strategic. Unfortunately, I had to say this, but sometimes we have to play the game because they're playing games as well. I wanted to start by sharing with you some of the mothers, the leaders of yesteryear that fought vicious wars, that stood out and were fearless. And allow me to share with you the story of Nanaya Asantwa. This was the gatekeeper of the golden stool in the Ashanti Kingdom. As you're all aware, the British, any leader, any chief, any king who tried to rise and fight against the British and organize resistance, they were quickly arrested and either killed or sent to Mauritius in exile. But this current chief, the king, was in exile in Mauritius. And the governor of the Ashanti Kingdom at that time, a British guy, had decided he was going to take the golden stool to the United Kingdom. When the men of the Ashanti, realizing that this was an opportunity for them to get their king back, they had negotiated that the golden stool could go to the UK on condition that their king is brought back. Nanaya Asantwa, a woman, upon hearing this terrible story, terrible news, he confronted the men, and his speech, and I'm going to paraphrase, his speech went as follows. Is it true that the Ashanti man, the bravery of the Ashanti man is no more? Is it true that you are getting ready to give up the spirit of the Ashanti people in exchange for a king? If that is the case, she said, I am going to call upon all my women friends, and we will pick up arms and fight the British until every single one of us is down. This was a woman. So she shamed the Ashanti men, who then got together and fought to defend the golden stool. In order to understand the importance of the golden stool for the Ashanti people, the spirit of a whole people, born, yet to be born, and those who have gone by, resides in that golden stool. So giving up that golden stool would have given up the spirit of a people. To this day, the Ashanti people still have their golden stool, thanks to one woman who was fearless, one woman who was unafraid to speak the truth and state the facts for what they are. May I remind you to look back in each one of you, whatever countries you come from, wherever you're listening to, there are many stories of such fearless women. Well, I tell you, my brothers and sisters, we are at that crucial moment where we can no longer afford to be afraid. Yes, we have local battles with our men in Africa, but let's also realize that while we are fighting those local battles with our men in the boardrooms, in cabinets across the continent, let's not forget the invisible hand. The invisible hand that has such a tight grip on anything that we try to do as Africans. Look at the various instabilities across the continent, the wars, the coups. For a continent that doesn't have a single gun manufacturing plant, we have an endless supply of guns. Where are the guns coming from? Let's ask those definite, obvious questions. We know there are others who are benefiting from our instability. Let's face those invisible hands head on. Let's speak truth to power. They have lied to us. They have made us believe that we were the problem. I'm not saying we don't have any problems to shelter, not by any stretch of imagination. I'm simply saying, let's understand our issues in their totality. It is my humble opinion that over 70% of Africa's problems are generated exogenously. I repeat that. Over 70% of Africa's issues are generated exogenously as a way of making sure that while we are in a turmoil, they continue to exploit our beloved continent. If you were to take an analysis of all the areas of conflict, you will not find conflict in any area or any country where there are no natural resources, where there are no oil reserves, where there are no gas reserves. They're always forever trying to find a way of keeping us destabilized in order for them to continue to exploit us. So yes, while we are also fighting from home, our husbands, all the way to at work, at whatever level, but let's also speak with one voice and fight the invisible hand. We all know who those culprits are. They've been at play since colonization. They've never left, and they continue to a great extent to control Africa's resources, African economies. To date, Ethiopia is in a bit of a different situation in the sense that the Italians were not successful enough to have a stronghold like the French do in the former colonies. And of course, the British and the Germans and all that, their citizens who are multinationals, who have been multinationals since colonization, have never left. They continue to run those economies. You take Germany, for example. I was just in Namibia, and it's really sad to realize that Namibia is still pretty much under colonization. All the rich areas of Namibia, they're occupied by the Germans. All those areas around Windhoek where there's good rains, good soil, those lands, Namibians can't afford to buy land over there. Namibians can't even afford to buy land in Windhoek. You have to go up north to the reserves where Black people were sent to by apartheid South Africa. That situation still exists to this day. Namibia is classified as a middle income country, not because the Namibians, the Black Namibians are doing well, but because the white Namibians who are Germans, they are doing well. And they're the ones that are making it difficult for the country to really access the funding they need because they are now classified as middle income. But the middle income people are not us. So I'm saying this to say, the issues raised by the ambassador are so crucial that we as women, we must make a commitment to stick together, to bond together, to speak with one voice, because our men do. But once we pass that level, we must unite with those men to also fight a bigger battle, and that is the battle of those outside forces that are creating havoc. You take, for example, the situation in the northern part of Ethiopia, the Tigray region. Who is funding them? Who is funding them? Where are the guns coming from? Follow the guns and you'll understand the enemy. Follow the guns in the DRC and you'll understand the enemy. Follow the guns wherever there's conflict in Africa and you will know who the enemy is. And so, as we talk about being my sister's keeper, let's also understand the bigger enemy. But I cannot agree with the ambassador enough that we as women, let's understand our challenges as we enter the workforce to work with our men who we cannot live with and we cannot live without. And we must also make a commitment to be a cohesive unit, particularly in situations where the men stand to divide us and make sure that we're always ending up at the short end of the stick. Yes, there are double standards, no question about it. But we must continue to push on. African Union has embarked on gender parity. I think the AU has done a good job at the AU level, but that good job needs to be spread on to the rest of the continent. We would like to see gender parity at every level, at the cabinet level, parliamentarians, because women, we all know and are in agreement with no doubt at all that when we have women leaders, countries move mountains because we can be trusted, because we deal with issues from the heart. We look at it from a family perspective. Unfortunately, sometimes our men don't always have that bird's eye view on issues. So yes, it is that if a country was to focus on women, if a country was to empower women through their policies, that is a country that can thrive. Perfect example is what's happening in Rwanda. President Kagame has done a tremendous job of incorporating women and empowering them into leadership roles. I would hope that more and more African leaders can take a page out of Rwanda and increase the female representation in their cabinets, in their parliamentarians throughout the continent. And yes, solidarity among us women, solidarity based on facts, solidarity based on knowledge, and of course, solidarity that is fearless. We have absolutely nothing to fear as women. Stand up to those men and speak truth to power. Let's not be intimidated. Remember, we gave birth to them. They wouldn't be if it were not for you and I. So let's be fearless. Let's fight our battles at every level, but let's also be very clear what battle we are fighting and what level we are fighting. Let's not forget the bigger enemy, the invisible hands that are ultimately controlling Africa's future. The invisible hand that are going to ultimately decide how Africa develops unless we stand together and push back and fight and defend what belongs to us. Africa for the Africans at home and abroad. Plain and simple. The others, they gotta go. You must come into Africa the same way we go into their countries. We don't go to China and dictate what Chinese should do. We go by what they say we should do. But the same should be true when they come to Africa. They should abide by our rules, by our laws, pay your taxes, behave. No money laundering, no tax havens, no siphoning resources out of Africa illegally. We can only achieve that goal if we can come together and speak with one voice. So yes, I am my sister's keeper. Let's stick together, let's unite and push back and defend our turf. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Ambassador Dr. Arikana Chihombori-Quao, for that powerful message. Thank you. Yeah, indeed, we have to understand our enemy in order to fight back.